Hi everyone. I am coming on to do my input on boundaries. So some of you will be aware that the last few days I have been really unwell with a bug, and that has really prompted me to really think about my boundaries. Like a few days ago, I did post that I was going to do an input on boundaries yesterday, but I was just too unwell. And then I guess the kind of being sick has been a gift because it's made me really think about, okay, when do I set boundaries? Why is it important? And often when I think about boundaries, I often just think about kind of in relationships with my partner or in the workplace, rather than what if I'm sick and then setting boundaries. And I guess it got me thinking about all the kind of shame and guilt that goes with setting boundaries and how it can be really uncomfortable and how it's not an easy thing to do. And I was kind of put smack bang in the middle of that this weekend, of having to sit with that discomfort of, oh, okay, I'm going to have to cancel a sound journey. I think it's the first time ever I've cancelled a sound journey. It's fully booked. That's going to impact X amount of people. But I'm not feeling well, and I know I'm not well enough to facilitate this offering, and that's really important. And for those that have worked with me, they know that I always say, if you're not well, you're not well. And that includes me as well. I have to be able to have the energy to hold space, to facilitate an offering, to give my best. And I knew I wouldn't be able to. And at the same time, you start having all these thoughts creep in of, I'm letting people down. People are going to think that I'm not trustworthy. I'm not reliable. What if people don't book again? What if people think I'm flaky? What if people even think I'm just making an excuse and I'm not really sick? All these things that go through your head, which I know, because I questioned them all of yesterday, are not true beliefs. And you know what? Even if there was people that did think that, that is their belief, it doesn't have to be mine. So there's kind of two sides. That there's the one side of me challenging that, going, that belief isn't necessarily true, and it's not helpful for me or serving me if I'm kind of feeding into that, putting energy into that, because I'm not well and I'm setting a boundary, and that is healthy and that is important. And I have to think of myself and my well-being and my boundaries, right? And what's right for me. And at the same time, if there is people that do have issues with it, that is okay too. And we have that in our lives a lot, that we set a boundary and the person struggles with it. Maybe they don't like it. Maybe they even get angry with you. Maybe they get disappointed. Maybe they, I don't know, you never know. There's millions of reactions that they could show. Or yeah. So, but the fact is if you're setting a boundary and it's right for you, and you're doing it in a compassionate and empowering and kind way, with a lot of I statements, and if needed, maybe even an apology, then that's okay, and that's enough. And it doesn't really matter what the reaction is. It may be really uncomfortable. You may even start having these really unhelpful thoughts, which I had all of yesterday, and that'll be kind of your choice to challenge them, which I highly recommend. If those kind of difficult thoughts come up, squash them. Squash them and challenge them, because they're just going to take energy and they're not serving you. And if people do react a certain way, it's important that we then continue to keep our boundaries in place. And perhaps if we feel comfortable to maybe say to that person, say, okay, you know what, I'm hearing what you're saying, and I hear that that's how you're feeling, but at the same time, I have to put this boundary in place, or I have to do this because it's right for me right now. And I understand that it's maybe not right for you, or that it's upsetting. Recognize that something's coming up for that other person, because they've got their story, they've got their history, right? They may be triggered, they may be activated, they may just not be used to you suddenly setting boundaries. Maybe this is a new thing. We constantly have to educate and teach people how to treat us. And for many of us, including myself, I've fallen into many very unhelpful patterns in my life, which are definitely linked to things that I have learned in my life, my attachments, things that I believe to be true, my values, and they definitely aren't always the same as everyone else's. So, but the thing is I guess these unhelpful patterns are, sometimes we set boundaries in place or we don't set boundaries. Often it's the case, and I've been there, where I didn't set boundaries, where I always said yes, where I was always the nice person. I was always the one everyone could rely on and could talk to and could call anytime. And actually it came at a cost. It came at a cost to my well-being. It came at a cost to a point where I sometimes felt like actually I'm being used, or I'm only the person that people come to when they need help. And I'm talking about my personal life here. And this was quite a while ago, because I've been working with surrender and boundaries for some time now, and I've really seen a huge change. But it is about that. It's about if you're recognizing that the patterns of your behaviors are not helpful anymore, and if it's about boundaries and you're not setting boundaries, then it's about starting to actively set boundaries. Again, in a compassionate way, in a way that feels true to you, so that you're not left afterwards feeling guilty about what you've done, that you walk away going, okay, that felt really uncomfortable, and maybe that person hasn't reacted in the way I would like, or maybe they won't, but I've spoken my truth, I've said what I need to say, it feels okay, and whatever comes next doesn't really matter because I've set my boundary. I kind of feel like I'm going round a bit. So basically, in a nutshell, boundaries are super important, and I think actually they're the essence of interactions and connections in my view. And they're coming up more and more for me and for clients, and they are uncomfortable, especially depending which cultural setting you live in, where boundaries maybe are not a common thing, and maybe also, again, people are maybe not used to you setting boundaries. So you may find that you lose some friendships, people in your life kind of fall away that are uncomfortable with you setting boundaries, that can't just call you all the time, that can't contact you all the time, that can't just ask you to do everything. But at the same time, it's so empowering because you're being true to yourself, and you are expressing your needs. And that's really important, that we express our needs. We teach others how to treat us. And yeah, like I said, it is uncomfortable. It's not easy, but it can be done. So here we go. What's my thought? My thought is, if you are struggling to set boundaries like many of us are, and like I have just had over the weekend, and I thought I feel like I'm pretty good at setting boundaries. I've really worked on it for a long time, and I can really set kind of clear and almost kind of really proactive, really fierce boundaries sometimes. I really struggled. That inner critic crept up. I started to question what I was doing. I almost put pressure on myself, and I was this close to just pushing through and offering that sound journey. And I didn't, and it was the right thing to do. And instead, I was able to rest yesterday. I was able to recover and take care of myself, and I feel so much better for it. So yeah, here's my thought, I guess. I keep saying that, but here's my final thought. Set that boundary. See where it takes you. It may be uncomfortable, but if you do it in a way that feels right for you, that isn't harmful or hurtful to the other person, I think that's really key, then you can't really go wrong. And stay true to yourself and speak to the people in your life that give you energy and give you support. Talk to someone if you're thinking about setting a boundary and not sure how to do it. Maybe write it down, maybe practice it. Maybe get some feedback from people in your circle of trust that you can talk to that can support you with that. And if those negative beliefs kind of creep in, those unhelpful thoughts, squash them. Squash them if they're not serving you. Okay, so there we go. That's my thought. That was quite raw. I'm just doing one take. I hope it makes sense. Wishing you a peaceful Monday wherever you are. I'm still not feeling 100%. I'm off to work though. I'm definitely feeling better than yesterday. But that feels okay. That feels okay. All right, take good care, everyone. From me, Corey from Koa in Edinburgh, on this very dark Monday morning.